Good day, everyone. Welcome to Real Conservative News. I'm your host, Nathaniel Rajkumar. Starting off locally here in Trinidad and Tobago, Patriotic Front leader Mickela Panday says citizens are facing further financial strain as government weighs a significant increase in the domestic airfares. Really a bad decision by the government this time around again. Trade, Investment and Tourism Minister Rajkumar on Thursday revealed that the members of the public could pay from $960 to $1,000 to travel between Trinidad and Tobago via Caribbean Airlines under peak period pricing as government considers a proposed plan to introduce 2 unsubsidized flights daily on the domestic bridge. How many flights does it have daily anyhow? But nevertheless, it's still an unwise decision, and they're most likely going to do it during peak hours when they know most individuals are going to be using that type of transportation. In its statements yesterday, Panday said the proposal would deepen the financial burden on citizens already grappling with rising costs, and she's 100% correct about that as well. Panday questioned the justification for higher fares, citing CAL's recent financial performance. The airline recorded an operating profit of US $12.1 million in 2024, following US $24.7 million in 2023. While acting CEO Mickela reported that first quarter 2026 profitability increased by 66% year on year to approximately US $9 million. Panday warned that the proposed increase from roughly $400 to as much as $1,000 for return fares during peak periods would have wide-reaching implications, particularly for Tobagonians. Now, she's correct about that as well. The maths kind of way a little off though, and this is why I went and did some research online. Information, now not the numbers there, but what I'm saying is, it's not really the maths off, but her logic behind it, right? The information obtained online that Panday appears to be either unaware of or chooses not to highlight, because in her opinion, it seems as though the profit made was sufficient. Despite reporting modest operating profits in 2023 and 2024, Caribbean Airlines remains in a state of financial crisis because these figures exclude a massive burden of legacy debt and surging non-fuel operational costs. The airline is currently seeking a TT $1 billion debt write-off from the Trinidad and Tobago government as it struggles to meet escalating loan repayments, which have tripled for the upcoming fiscal year. That's what the government should be supposed to be focused on. Number one, hold the previous administration accountable, or the previous management in CAL accountable for a decade of no transparency and accountability. No other thing. Which government was in office for the past 10 years that this ended up taking place under? The PNM, my dear patriots. This instability is compounded by a severe lack of transparency, with the airline failing to produce audited financial statements for here how long? Nearly a decade. PNM was in office, people, alongside a recent exodus of senior leadership. Faced with a prime ministerial ultimatum to achieve self-sufficiency by 2027, the bailout is less about daily survival and more about clearing billions in historical liabilities and restructuring an unsustainable business model that currently relies on heavy government subsidies to keep regional domestic fares affordable. Yeah, but we need to do that for our people. UNC, I went on to say UNC was given the responsibility to govern a nation that was on the verge of a complete economic collapse, and therefore you can't blame this present regime for what's taking place, though, in spite of these incorrect policy decisions. I understand why they're doing it. I just don't agree with what they're doing, but I understand why. I don't believe that increasing the fare is a wise decision. I don't. But what other choice do they have? That's the question. Do they have an alternative at this point in time? Maybe it's just temporary. Let's just hope and pray that it is temporary. Does the government have sufficient funds to continue subsidizing CAL at this point in time? That is the question. Having said that, so I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, but I still don't agree. Having said that, more focus should have been placed on ensuring proper management of the airline going forward, instead of placing the financial burden upon the backs of citizens. That's what Prime Minister, you need to focus on, because at the end of the day, this yet another doubling policy will affect the UNC's chances of winning the local elections next year, God's willing, and definitely in 2030. Minister of Health, Dr. Lakram Bodo, says that despite the challenges faced by the government, He believes its performance over the past year has been strong. He made the remarks at the United National Congress 1-year anniversary celebration report to the nation held at the Couva South Hall car park, marking the party's first year in office. My response: in spite of some significant errors, including what they were planning to do just now with Cal, I don't agree with it. In spite of some significant errors being made by the UNC administration, during their first year in office, they have already begun the process to clean up all the destruction left behind by the PNM, which was in office for 9.5 long years. When PNM is in office, time seems as though it just stops. Prime Minister Kamala should have never made certain promises on the campaign trail, though, which she wasn't sure that she would have been able to keep, including the reducing of traffic fines. Prime Minister Kamala, up to now, you haven't apologized to the nation for making that error. You said you were going to reduce those fines, and yet you doubled it instead. And you were aware of the lawlessness that you're talking about now all back then. You knew that Trinidadians had a need for speed and breaking the law. And at the end of the day, I don't care. I don't care if you triple and quadruple the speeding tickets, do that. But the the minor offenses is what you should have never doubled. I want to say, but even the Kakash media must admit that many other significant promises were in fact kept, such as the passing, listen to this people, such as the passing of the Stand Your Ground law, very significant promise that was made, that was kept, and the repealing of the Property Tax Act and the TTRA Act in June 2025. PNM patriots chose to make ultimate sacrifices for their country for almost a decade under Rowley. If Rowley was making all these decisions about doubling this and doubling that, they would have made excuses for him. They wouldn't have done like me and come out and say what the Prime Minister is doing is wrong, but nevertheless, she's still governing the nation properly. In general, no, they would have defended Rowley's decision or his government's decision. So I said PNM patriots chose to make ultimate sacrifices for their country for almost a decade under Rowley, but are now expecting UNC to fix a broken economy within less than a year. And that includes the Kakash media, because the Kakash media is appearing to be very, very critical of the UNC government during this 1-year anniversary celebration. Their patriotism and love is for the PNM people. Don't get tied up. Not Trinidad and Tobago. PNM's patriotism is towards their party. They consider PNM to be their party. That's why they say it's PNM country. They also consider the PNM to be the party to be their God and also their tribe. That's the reality, people.
Minister Bago, how do you feel about the performance of the last year?
I think despite the challenges the government encountered, I believe that the government has done very well. But of course, I refer you to the report of the Honorable Prime Minister this afternoon. I'm sure the nation is looking forward to that.
And what do you see for the future of your ministry?
I believe that there's a lot to be delivered, but again, I would refer you to the speech of the Honorable Prime Minister this evening, who intends to share the vision for the government in all sectors going forward.
Trinidad and Tobago weather forecast for Sunday, April 26. Sky conditions. Expect mostly cloudy and slightly hazy conditions throughout the day. There is a medium chance of isolated heavy showers or thunderstorms, especially over Trinidad. Temperature and heat index. The high temperature will be 30 degrees Celsius and the low will be 24 degrees Celsius. The heat index is expected to reach 34 degrees Celsius. Rainfall and thunderstorms. There is a 40% chance of heavy showers or thunderstorms. Street flooding and gusty winds are likely in areas of heavy downpours. Saharan dust and air quality. Mild to moderate concentrations of Saharan dust are present. People with respiratory sensitivities should take necessary precautions due to the hazy air. Wind and sea conditions. Winds will be from the east to southeast at 5 to 35 km per hour. Sea conditions are moderate with waves reaching up to 2.0 meters in open waters.
Regional news now. The Guyanese Ministry of Education, under the leadership of the Honorable Sonia Parag, has launched a comprehensive 5-year strategic plan aimed at revitalizing the nation's foundational learning outcomes. This initiative arises in response to regional concerns regarding literacy gaps and the need for a modern, digitally ready teaching force. By prioritizing two core pillars, rigorous teacher professional development and the aggressive enhancement of students' numeracy and literacy, we need a lot of that here in Trinidad and Tobago. The strategy seeks to ensure that every learner achieves functional competency before transitioning to secondary education, because by the time you reach secondary school and you still can't read properly, you might be able to write a little bit, but you can't really read properly, and you don't really have much knowledge about the basics in maths. That's basically the end there, That's basically it's downhill from there, because you're not going to get any secondary teacher to be going and trying to teach you the basics that you should have already learned in primary school. Through the implementation of new national assessments at the primary level and community-based outreach like literacy tents, the ministry is establishing a high accountability framework designed to bridge academic disparities and prepare the next generation for an increasingly complex global economy. Do we have programs like that here in Trinidad and Tobago? Because if we don't, Prime Minister, this sounds like a wonderful idea. Local contractors in Jamaica are being urged to make the necessary investment in their companies to effectively compete for large-scale government projects. Government investing, make sure that you have your things in proper place with proper plans and stuff like that, so that you won't be wasting the government time, in other words. Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness, a very good Prime Minister, making some unwise decisions, just like Kamala, but in general, good Prime Minister, made a suggestion while speaking at the National Housing Trust groundbreaking ceremony for the Galena housing development in St. Mary. He said Jamaica needs a contracting class that is thinking at enterprise scale, that will put the resources into their business to acquire the technical skills and competencies to integrate the technology and to develop the balance sheet to support the kinds of capital works that the government of Jamaica will be bringing to market, Holness said. He stated that the local construction industry plays a critical role in creating a dent in Jamaica's housing deficit of 150,000 houses. That's a lot of people that need homes, people. A whole lot. But he's right. If government is going to invest in your company, make sure that you're prepared to be able to perform your duties effectively. Don't waste taxpayers' dollars. The Barbados Workers Union is currently awaiting the findings of an official probe into the tragic accident at the Ready Mix Layers Quarry that occurred on April 15th, 2026, claiming the life of one worker and injuring 3 others. The incident took place around 9:57 a.m. when a heavy piece of equipment collapsed while several employees were setting it up. Lord Father, by those kind of freak accidents, those are the things that really sadden me, resulting in one man dying instantly at the scene. That's why safety measures are so important to be enforced on these job sites. Following the event, BWU Senior Industrial Relations Officer Janelle Farley confirmed that the union has met with management and the affected workforce to ensure that comprehensive counseling and medical support are provided to the survivors and the deceased family. As investigations continue under the direction of the Labor Department and the Barbados Police Service, the union has emphasized its commitment to reviewing the eventual safety recommendations to prevent such a freak accident from reoccurring in the future. That's why it's so important to be proactive instead of reactive. It's better to be a little bit on the paranoid side, people, when it pertains to safety, and to allow these things to end up happening and tragedy strikes. Someone loses their life, and then the families have to grieve for the rest of their lives. International news now. A security breach at the 2026 White House Correspondents' Dinner occurred when Cole Thomas Allen, a registered, it wasn't just a random person that entered the building, a registered guest at the Washington Hilton, leveraged his hotel access to bypass initial checkpoints and approach the high security zone surrounding the ballroom. Armed with a shotgun, handgun and knives, Allen attempted to circumvent the final Secret Service magnetometer station by sprinting past the metal detectors and firing at an agent whose life was saved by a ballistic vest. Thank God that hero survived. I saw the video, and a lot of those agents were running into the area where they know that it had someone with a weapon, and they didn't know if they could have ended up being fired at as well. Truly has heroes outside here. While the shooter's status as a guest allowed him to navigate the hotel's less regulated entrances, the secondary layer of security proved effective despite the proximity of the gunfire. Allen never reached the ballroom doors or reached the interior where Donald Trump was seated. Yeah, but this should never have been allowed to happen in the first place. Increase security at the other entrance as well, especially when you're having an event like this. The president was there, people. Ultimately, the incident highlighted vulnerabilities in door control at public venues while demonstrating that the specific ballroom perimeter remained intact, leading to renewed debates over the inherent security risks of hosting high-profile events in commercial hotel buildings. Definitely, it begs the question if that should ever be done again in the future, especially when pertaining to Trump. Because the radical left, the Democrats, will never stop trying to get rid of this man. This is what, the third attempt now, or the fourth? I think it's the third. Correct me if I'm wrong. And don't believe this was just a random act, people. There were protesters with there. Most likely this was organized. It's just that for some reason up to now, the FBI and all these different investigative bodies cannot determine who are the individuals orchestrating these attempts. President Trump details his decision to cancel U.S. negotiators Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner's planned trip to Pakistan for talks with Iran. It's making sense. We're going and doing another negotiation for when you know it's the same nonsense as we say it's spinning top in mud. He said, we have all the cards. We are not going to spend 15 hours in airplanes all the time going back and forth to be giving a document that was not good enough. You understand? He's finally talking a little sense again. And then sometimes he just goes off again. And I don't know if it's Witkoff or whoever tells him, no, let me go and make another deal again. Now, it doesn't mean that he's going back to war, though. But he's going to continue placing a whole lot of pressure with the blockade on Iran, which appears to be quite effective thus far. He's not giving in and allowing them to begin to prosper, anything like that. The Ayatollah regime is putting even more pressure than usual. This is not just about sanctions anymore. That blockade appears to be quite effective, and hopefully, within the next few weeks or so, we might see a change of heart to an extent in the Ayatollah and the IRGC to say, you know what, okay, we are willing to make a compromise. No, at this point in time, still no. In my opinion, I don't think they will ever compromise because these jihadists have been indoctrinated since young to fight for the cause of what? Destroying little Satan and big Satan. Little Satan is Israel, and big Satan is America. That's their whole objective in life, Their goal is to destroy America and Israel. And they don't care what it costs them, even if it costs them their whole country and their lives.
You probably heard that we canceled the trip. We have all the cards. We're not going to spend 15 hours in airplanes all the time going back and forth to be giving a document that was not good enough. And so we'll deal by telephone, and they can call us anytime they want. Again, we have all the cards. They have no military left, practically. They have no leaders left. We don't know who the leaders are.
Bible quote of the day. Genesis chapter 17, verses 1-8. When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to him and said that he is God Almighty. Abram was told to walk before him faithfully and be blameless, for the Lord would make his covenant between them and greatly increase Abram's numbers. Abram fell face down, and God said to him that as for him, this was his covenant with him, Abram would be the father of many nations. No longer would he be called Abram, his name would be Abraham, for he had been made a father of many nations. God promised to make him very fruitful and to make nations of him, and kings would come from him. He would establish his covenant as an everlasting covenant between him and Abraham and his descendants after him for the generations to come, to be his God and the God of his descendants after him. The whole land of Canaan, where Abraham now resided as a foreigner, would be given as an everlasting possession to him and his descendants after him, and he would be their God.
Folks, that brings us to the end of today's news report. Thanks again to everyone who continues to support my content. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Stay blessed and stay safe most of all. In Jesus' name,